Are you on the spiritual path and experiencing ringing or buzzing in the ears? Does it sound a bit like this? Does it happen in both the right and the left ears, sometimes at the same time and at different times of the day or night? Well, it's really common to hear ringing in the ears when you're going through a spiritual awakening. Even if you're not aware that you're awakening. In this video, I'm going to explain why and when spiritual ear ringing happens. Hi everyone, I'm Sophia Persephone and I'm a channel for the Council of Light. I make videos which demystify the spiritual awakening process and explain how our universe really works. Okay, so if you're hearing ringing in the ears and it's definitely not tinnitus or a medical problem and you don't think you're going through a spiritual awakening, I have to tell you the chances are you are. That's because the early stages of spiritual awakening, exactly the time when you start to get ear ringing, are typically unconscious. That means that you're not aware that you're going through the process yet. Things are happening to you at a foundational level, but they haven't filtered into your consciousness. And these are the stages of spiritual awakening that occur before the spiritual epiphany, that moment when you realize that you're going through something important. I'm going to leave a link to a video about the stages of spiritual awakening in the description if you want to understand more about how all of that works. So, during awakening, there's two main spiritual reasons why your ears might be ringing. The first one is that there's a vibrational difference between your personal energy and energy in your environment. And the second is that spirits or guides from the other side are around you, possibly trying to communicate. So ringing in your right ear usually means the cause is internal. It's the result of this difference in vibrational rate between yourself and your surroundings. And left ear ringing usually means the reason is external, from other energies around you. So let's talk about ear ringing caused by internal factors first. During the spiritual awakening process, you increase your vibrational rate or your frequency, and you start to do this long before your conscious awakening. You don't realize that you're doing it, but your guides are subtly nudging you towards new behaviors, which are going to increase energetic rate. And they can do this in several ways, but the most common ones are these. They steer you towards inner work and therapy, sometimes called shadow work. They encourage you to spend more time in nature. You feel drawn to green spaces, mountains, woods, the sea. They'll also guide you towards healthier living, a better diet, more exercise, and they'll guide you towards spiritual practices like meditation and yoga. They're also going to steer you away from things that can lower your vibrational rate. So these include things like damaging relationships, addictive substances, and unfulfilling jobs and careers. Does any of this sound familiar to you? If it does and your ears are ringing, I promise you are on the spiritual awakening path. Okay, so early to mid spiritual awakening, your vibrational rate is starting to increase. You may or may not be aware that you're going through an awakening, and this is when you're getting the ringing in your right ear. And it's going to become even more pronounced as you progress into conscious awakening, and especially when you reach a stage of awakening called the connection stage. And what happens during this period of awakening is that your vibrational rate shoots up very quickly to a very high level, and it stays that way for quite a long period of time. And the reason for that is that the universe has opened all of your chakras simultaneously, so you're getting an enormous rush of energy through your system. It's a wonderful feeling, but it almost always means that your energy, your personal energy, is out of step with the forces around you. And this is what creates the energetic dissonance that causes the ringing in your right ear. As we progress even further through the awakening journey, our energetic rate starts to align more with our environment because we're using our newfound soul power to manifest a higher vibrational reality, even if we're not aware that we're doing it. It's the law of attraction. Like calls to like. Your energy is higher, you're attracting higher vibrational energy. So as your internal energy and the external energy around you start to draw closer together, you'll find that the ear ringing becomes less frequent and less pronounced. Now, there are other specific times when you might get ringing in your right ear, and one of these is when you enter a state of trance. Now, what's happening when you're in trance is you're temporarily accessing the higher dimensions. And what I mean by you is your conscious mind. Your conscious mind is ascending to the higher dimensions. And this again creates an energetic dissonance, a temporary one. And just to be clear what I mean by trance, I mean when you're in meditation or you're under hypnosis, or even if you just get into a flow state when you're doing something that needs your full focus. In fact, the loudness of the ringing corresponds to how big the gap is between up there and down here. The higher your consciousness ascends, the bigger the gap, and therefore the louder the ringing will be. Okay, so in a minute, let's talk about the spiritual meaning of ringing in your left ear. But firstly, if you're finding this video helpful, please hit the like button so it can reach more people who need it. Okay, so ringing in the left ear. This usually means that there's disincarnate activity around you, i.e. visitors and energies from the higher dimensions that you can't discern visibly are in the area. If your left ear is ringing spiritually, this often means your guides or someone else want to talk to you. In fact, you can think of the ringing as a bit like a telephone. They're trying to get you to pick up. And sometimes it's not your guides, but it's other entities such as family or friends who have passed over and they want to talk to you. And the great news is that you can teach yourself to pick up their messages. How do you do that? Well, if you're still quite early on in your awakening, you'll probably need to take some time out specifically to do it and create the conditions that are required to receive a message. And the best way to do this is just to perform a short meditation. I'd recommend a third eye meditation or a nothingness meditation where you just maintain a state of neutrality. And what happens if you do either of these techniques is you create space in your consciousness for messages to come through. This is what mediums and channels are doing. One of my top tips for people who are new to receiving messages from the other side is if you burn essential oil of myrrh while you're meditating, this helps messages to come through with more clarity. And by the way, if you're receiving signs and synchronicities around the same time that your left ear is ringing, like number sequences or animal or bird symbols, then absolutely pretty much 100% definitely someone is trying to get a message to you. Now, sometimes your left ear ringing spiritually doesn't mean your team want to talk as such, but they're just trying to draw your attention to something. And in this instance, the ringing is usually shorter, maybe just a couple of seconds long. If you're getting ringing that sounds like that, typically it means pay attention to what you just saw or thought or heard. It's correct or it's useful to you. You should pay attention to this thing. But sometimes you can get spiritual ringing in your left ear without anyone trying to draw your attention to anything or even trying to get a message to you. What it simply means is there's a lot of heightened activity around you. Your supporters, your team, they're excited. They're literally buzzing with excitement. Now, this could be because you've reached an important milestone in your spiritual development, or it could mean that something significant has happened which relates to your mission. And of course, both of these things could lie outside of your physical sphere of perception, but you can hear your supporters celebrating. Okay, so let's answer the really big question. Does frequent ringing in your ears mean you're having a spiritual awakening? The answer is yes, especially if there's no obvious physical cause. And remember that 5 to 10% of the Earth's population are due to wake up in the next 4 to 5 years. So it's not beyond the realms of possibility at all that you are awakening. But if you want to be really sure, these are the other signs to look out for. Have you been doing a lot of inner work in recent years? Have you developed an interest in spiritual topics? Have you gone through a period of feeling extremely tired? Is your intuition a lot stronger than it used to be? Have you been seeing signs and synchronicities? All of these things are indications of being in early to mid spiritual awakening. Now, can you stop the ringing in your ears? Well, not exactly, no, you can't switch it off. However, there are things you can do to reduce it. Firstly, if you're awakening and you make the decision to commit to the process, once you're through the connection phase, you will find that ear ringing reduces naturally over time as your vibrational rate increases and you manifest a higher vibration reality. Also, if you create space regularly to communicate with your guides, they're less likely to need to use ringing in the ear to get your attention. And as I mentioned, you can do this by meditating daily, but you can also learn divination techniques such as tarot and runes, and you can also teach yourself to read signs and dreams. If you're experiencing spiritual ear ringing and you think you might be going through a spiritual awakening, take a look at this playlist, which has loads of information about the spiritual awakening journey to help you on your way.